Hello everyone, welcome. Um, Guess what? I just made a video almost 20 minutes long, and as it turned out, I forgot to turn on my microphone. I just purchased a new microphone because I'm not used to recording outside. I realized a microphone would be really helpful, so I got one and I forgot to turn it on. So my whole recording I have to redo all over again, but that's okay. I will make it shorter this time because I know it gets a little boring when it gets too long. I love to talk about succulents, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. And sometimes they just want to look at beautiful succulents and not necessarily listen to my voice. So I'll make it quick. So today I have my Graptoverias here. Um, I actually didn't even know that I had this many. But as it turns out, Graptoverias are a hybrid cross between Graptopetalum and Echeverias. So here we go. So on the left over here, this is all the Margaret Rose. Let me show you closer. This cute little panda pot. I bought it as a 2-inch nursery pot, and I repotted in here. And this is also a tiny, tiny pot, but it actually grew significantly. When I first potted it, I think it was just about the size of the opening of the pot over here. But now it's sort of like spilling out. So that's a good sign. When I pot these, I actually make my own succulent soil mix. So it must be doing well, right? It's grown significantly, and I feel like I've realized now that I look at that, now that I put these together, that Graftoverias are very resilient succulents. None of these are giving me any kind of issues, so that's a very good sign. Okay, now this one is called Bashful. Now, Bashful, as it turns out, is sort of interchangeable with Sedaveria Pink Ruby. I sort of stumbled across that information because I saw some YouTuber featuring Pink Ruby, and I was like, oh, that looks a lot like my Bashful. And as it turns out, I Googled, and as it turns out, they're sort of the same. I don't know how that really works, but I don't. As it turns out, it's the same. I do think that the color is a little bit different, though. The Pink Ruby is very pink. The Bashful, I've had it since last fall, I think. And in the fall, um, these like the underside of the leaves get like really purple, not so much pink. This one is more purplish to me. And I got this also as a 2-inch in a 2-inch nursery pot, and it's been on in this same pot from day one, and it's grown um, quite a lot. And the more exciting news is it's putting out little babies, which I'm super excited about. I'm gonna try to tilt it without spilling the gravel on top here. These two little ones over here, I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, we don't want to lose stones over here. And then I'm gonna turn it around, and voila, there is a bigger one here. This one was the first one that came out, and now of course there's a plane flying over my head, which is actually quite rare here, but there's one. Um, and this one, it's gotten quite big, and I think there's another one here. There you go. Boop, boop. There we go. Got to be really careful when touching these leaves in the summer, because I know sometimes they just, depending on if how much water they're storing in the leaves, sometimes they just fall off, and that's just scary to me. But this one is actually super healthy, and I realized just looking at my Graptoverias here, I think they're very resilient. They're very easygoing. I feel like this one I haven't watered in quite a long time, possibly more than a month. And I mean, it's a little bit when it is fully watered. Um, it's not as like soft and sort of mushy. Maybe mushy is not the right word, but uh, not as soft and pliable um, when it's fully absorbed all the water that you've given. So in the spring, it's like almost rock hard when you touch them. But right now, it's a little soft. But here, as you get closer to the center, you can see that the leaves are much firmer. So you'll see on the bottom here, it's this one over here. It's drying up because it's obviously using the stored water to put out the babies, and that's how they sort of survive over the summer. Um, they use the water in their leaves. Um, the bottom ones they always dry out. Um, and that's how they survive. And sometimes they can survive for some of these survive for months. And let's look at this Mendoza here. Now, this one is actually one of my most recent purchases, and I've only watered it once since I maybe twice since I potted it in this terracotta pot. Um, it's so cute. They stay pretty small as far as I know. I think the biggest the rosettes get maybe up to 2 inches big, but mines are still tiny. They came this way. I don't think there's much change. I mean, it did shed some of the leaves on the bottom, but that's pretty normal, right? After you pot them up, it takes some time to get adjusted, and with new root growth, they tend to drop some of the bottom leaves. These look um, pretty good to me. They're healthy. There's a lot of babies. And these, unlike, I think this is one of the first that I've seen that they put up babies on this like stems like this. I think it's very cute. Um, there hasn't been much change with this. It's besides the fact that it's gotten very leggy, and I think that's because Mendoza, I've heard or I've seen that they require a lot of sun. And sun is, I mean, I do get good amount of sun back here in my backyard. Um, Pretty much, I pick the best spot for my plant shelf where I'm trying to maximize the amount of sun I get back here. The only problem is I do have a shade cloth over my plant shelf, which um, is absolutely necessary in my opinion, because it just gets so hot in here. Uh, don't know if I can. I'm gonna try to shift this camera. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see, but right now I have like a fan running on my under my plant shelf. It's hanging on the top because it is so hot. Yeah, so I actually went out this morning and I thought that I would be back home by the time the sun is like fully on, fully blasting it in my backyard. But I was running late, so I came home around 11:15, and by then it was like uh, the sun was just blasting down on my succulent, and I actually had like these vinyl coverings on the side of on each side of my plant shelf because yesterday night there was chances of rain. Um, so that was sort of blocking the sun a bit, but by all means, that's not a shade cloth. So when I came out here, it was 105 degrees out here. So I literally came home. I'm just like, and I ran to my backyard. My husband thinks I'm a lunatic because I'm always running in and out of the house to do something with the succulents. But right now I have the fan going because it was 105 degrees there, and now it's reading 90 degrees. Humidity is about 41%. And just to let you know the difference between my top shelf and the bottom shelf is actually reading only 81 degrees, which is crazy. I mean, well, it's shaded down there, but the humidity is 58%. So there is a significant difference between the two areas. So I do have some of my succulents that need to be in a more shaded area on the bottom shelf. But problem with that is that it is a lot more humid down there. So on like rainy days and whatnot, with the high humidity, just got to be really careful. I lost one of my succulents that way. But anyway, back to my Graptoverias here. So these are lovely rose. They're called lovely rose, and I think they're beautiful. It's one of my favorites. And when I first got them, my sister-in-law gave it to me. She propagated them. They were teeny tiny babies. I'm going to insert some photos of how tiny they used to be, and they just sort of exploded in the spring. And since then, they've been just, I mean, it's a little bit, it might be dormant right now, but they've grown so much, and I love them so much. It's unbelievable to me how big they've gotten. Because I have seen on various channels some of these lovely rose, they get so huge, and I was wondering, I thought that maybe they were different species or different, like a hybrid or something, because I couldn't imagine how they can get so big and like thick stemmed. So as you can see, here, same size pots, 2-inch pots. Um, 6 of them here, 3 of them here, 2 of them here. This is just a 2-inch nursery pot. Look at the difference, right? The more rosettes here, but they're not as big as the ones over here. And I actually knocked this one over once. Oops. And but I just kind of repotted into the same one, but it didn't do any damage. They're very resilient. They're very strong, like to the sun. They actually love the sun. They require a lot of sun. They also love the water. You just have to find the right balance. And these I'm just like super excited about them because they also, I've seen a little bit of their color in the fall, and it's just beautiful. Like they get turned into this sort of like um, Indian pink in the center, and I just I think they're just really really beautiful. And look at how healthy they are right now. Look at how like the stems are a good size. When I first got them, they were in this plastic, um, tiny plastic, rectangular shaped plastic, and the vine, the stem was more like viney because they're so skinny and small. Um, I never thought that they would get this big, but look, oh, now it's very healthy. The stems are all upright now. Ever since I potted them, they're no longer all like wiggly and on the floor crawling. They're sort of upright, and I actually do prefer them to be upright. They might end up trailing. I know the Mendoza will eventually trail um, downward, but I like these to be upright. I think it's nice that way. And look at this one too. I'll show you guys a close-up view. Um, Obviously they're putting out, drying out. The leaves, the bottom leaves are drying out, and these are fairly like you don't necessarily have to pull them off, but because they're so like thin, and they usually just kind of fall off on their own, like in the wind. Apologies for my neighbor and my neighbor's dog, but yeah, they just kind of fall off on their own. But since I have it in my hand, I'm just gonna, take them off. And as you can see, the dried leaf is clean. I think that's a good indication of it being healthy. A lot of times when you pull out like a dried leaf from under a rosette, um, they're like, you can see that it's rotted, or it's the color. There's a lot of black going on there, some sort of moldy looking. That tends to happen with rosettes that are more like closer to the pot. These actually have stems, so when you pull off the dried leaves, sometimes you got to be careful if they're not completely dry. When you pull them off, like you might injure the stem. And that's usually like in a couple of days, like especially in the summer, they dry up. But if there's a lot of humidity in the air, a lot of viruses and bacteria, who knows what they're exposed to out here. It can make them sick. So it's sort of like humans, right? When you get a cut, you want to make sure you want to prevent any kind of infection. So we want to be careful with that. Now, talking about, you know, preventing infection. Look at this one. This one, if you look at it closer, I'm trying to, I don't know if the camera is focusing. There's these little weird sort of like spots, dried out looking spots over here. Now that's basically sunburn. You'll see. And this is not like a typical like sunburn from uh, just sitting out in the sun. This is actually from, oh, sorry, knocked over the camera. This is actually from spraying insecticide. So when you're growing them outside, they're exposed to the elements, and you want to, well, at least I want to prevent any kind of um, pest getting into my plants. I haven't had any pest issues so far. The only pest issues that I've dealt with is from plants that I purchased that came with pests. That happened to me a couple of times. But so far, growing them outside, I'm lucky enough, knock on wood. Um, I haven't had any pest issues. No like mealybugs, no spider mites or butterflies like laying eggs, or caterpillars eating my succulent leaves. I haven't had any of those issues. The biggest issue I've had was you know watering my succulent in uh, under high humidity. Like, I don't know what came over me. I did that once and it killed one of my succulents. I wasn't paying attention to the weather enough or whatnot. Didn't realize it was going to rain the next day, and it was just sitting in high humidity, so the water never had a chance to dry up in the pot, and I killed one of my agavoides that way. Literally overnight, it just like fell apart. But so what happens is, like, I try to do once a month some sort of insecticide. I spray on the succulents. Now, should always do that at nighttime, after the sun goes down, or on a cloudy day at least. I did that, and for all of them, except this one wasn't sitting on my plant shelf. It was sitting on, I have a separate mini like ladder plant shelf that I don't necessarily cover as well as the rest of the plants on my plant shelf. So it got, I guess it didn't dry out enough, or it didn't dry at all, and it must have had sun the next day. So just to keep it safe, they do say that, like, if you're gonna spray any kind of insecticide, and I used all natural ones, so nothing crazy. But so far, that has worked for me. So I'm not gonna go crazy and spray something that's like unhealthy for humans and pets. So yeah, it must have been. They say to at least give like 2 days for them to dry out before you put them out in the sun. But I always put out the shade cloth, so I didn't think this would happen. But as I mentioned, this was on a different shelf on my. I have a separate smaller shelf that I use for all my propagations, and it was sitting in there with my other 2-inch nursery pots, and it got neglected. I know, it's terrible. So that's why it's got sunburn, but I know it's gonna come back. It might take a while. They do say if your plants get sunburned, it can take up to a year for them to recover. But it's not dead, or it's not going to die. I don't believe that it's going to die. So it'll I'll nurse it back to health, hopefully. Okay, so I think that's it. The video got it quite long, but I'm gonna wrap up today. Thanks for watching. Bye now.